things.
Yeah, got it on Kick and Twitch, all that. Kicking with twitching. Baruch Hashem. Right? With all these gamers sitting there watching some guy. Maybe you could actually watch me actually learn some Torah with you for your life.
For your life.
This guy sitting there. These guys sitting there with like, What's this guy? You told me this guy had like what millions of views, like just sitting there playing games.
Oh, some streamers. Most of the bandwidth of the internet on a daily basis is young people watching each other play video games.
Young people watching each other play video games.
That's most of the data bandwidth.
It's actually young people watching old people play video games.
A little
It's like a 15-year-old watching like a 30-year-old guy play video games.
Well, by the time the guy's 30, he knows how to play the game. It takes a while till he knows how to play.
Yeah, no, it's true.
Man. Anyways, okay, let's continue. We are now going to go into an argument. Yesterday we said that according to one opinion, you're allowed to drink water before Havdalah. You cannot drink beer or wine before Havdalah. However, upligo de Rav Huna, and this is an argument with Rav Huna. The Rav Huna chazi lahu gavra. The Shosha Maya. Cause a curse to come on him, and he may end up getting the Askara virus. I don't know if it was a virus or if it was a bacterial. I'm not sure myself, but there was in fact something called Askara back then. You can look it up. It's actually a common disease spoken about in the Talmud called Askara. One thing you don't want to get is Askara. All right. The Tana Mishmei de Rabbi Akiva. As Rabbi Akiva, it was taught in the name of Rabbi Akiva, anybody that tastes anything before Havdalah, misaseh be'askara. Yeah? That's it. We have a quote from Rabbi Akiva, who was a great Kabbalist and a great teacher. As a matter of fact, he was the teacher of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, who was the author of the Zohar. Right? So he was, the teacher of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai was Rabbi Akiva, and he said that if a person drinks or tastes anything, he says the word tastes. The word taste means not necessarily eat, not necessarily drink, but the fact that you taste something before Havdalah could cause a person to get askara. Okay? Rabbanan debate Rav Ashi, and we throw that the rabbis of the house of Rav Ashi, loy kapti amaya, they were not particular on water, which means they say, listen, tasting something means something with taste. So if you're drinking wine that has a taste, therefore it's problematic. If you're drinking beer, it has a taste, that's problematic. However, if you're drinking wine, according to the rabbis' debate of Ashi, they were not particular on that. Okay? So that is pretty much the end of this week's quota from the Gemara. I want to briefly go over step by step because this Gemara was a super ADD week. What do I mean by that? Beginning,
It's fine. Don't worry.
it's fine.
We'll
Okay, we're going to go from the beginning and go through the details, especially anybody that joined recently in the last 5, 10, 20 minutes. If you weren't in the previous lessons, this is the perfect time to come because we are going to go through a step-by-step reading of the Talmud etc. We're not going to read it inside. Hopefully, those of you who followed inside the last few days will continue to follow inside. However, we're going to go through step by step outside, which means in concept. All right? We had a story of Ulla. We started out with a story of a man called Ulla, who was a great sage, who came to a city called Pumbedisa. Pumbedisa was a massive Jewish city, and it was one of the most studious cities in the Babylonian era. Okay, Pumbedisa, no. Ulla Ulla is the name of a person. Pumbedisa is the name of a city. Okay, Pumbedisa is the name of a city that was in Babylonia, which had a great Talmudic seminary where they used to study a lot of Talmud. Okay, now Ulla was a great sage, visited Pumbedisa, right? Now, because he visited Pumbedisa, he was a kind of a visiting sage, like we have today very often. A synagogue or a community has a rabbi in residence. Yeah, you ever heard of the concept? Which means they bring a rabbi for a week, they bring a rabbi for a day, they bring a rabbi for a Shabbos, so that he can kind of inspire. Sometimes the community is older, they're already bored of their regular rabbi, so the rabbi's like needs to bring a new rabbi, a new face to kind of like get people excited, right? It happens a lot. Now, in the Talmudic era, there were many Talmudic scholars that lived throughout Babylonia and throughout Israel. Okay? Those of you who think the Jews left Israel and then came back, you're wrong. Okay? The Jewish people were always in Israel throughout history, from the time of the Bible till today. There were always Jews in Israel. There were times where there was more. There was times that there was less. There were times that many of them were exiled and kicked out, but never 100%, because they couldn't catch all of us, right? You know, there's all these people throughout history. Throughout history, the world has always been trying to get the Jew, right? Hitler thought, you know what, I'm going to be so powerful, I'm so strong, I'm going to find every Jew. Now, unfortunately, he did a lot of damage. But at the end of the day, he didn't even get every Jew in Europe. There were Jews that hid, right? And the Romans, etc. There was, throughout history, they always thought, oh, we're going to get the Jews. Now, some people, unfortunately, were more successful than others, but no one has managed to get the Jews out of Israel ever. Okay, there was always Jews living in Israel. Okay, and in the era of the Second Temple, there was also a massive Jewish community in Babylonia, which is today pretty much Iraq. That's generally what it is. Okay, now there were different places in Iraq where there was a lot of Jews, and one of them was Pumbedisa. But that doesn't mean it was the only place that had Torah scholars. There were other places that had Torah scholars. Now, very often, right? Unlike today, where we have WhatsApp and we have Facebook and we have YouTube and all these ways of communicating, in those days, they didn't have ways of communicating the way we do, right? And therefore, very often you'd have a visiting rabbi that he wasn't just there to inspire you and to kind of, make you feel like you got a little bit of change in rabbinic life. No, these people very often had information that other people didn't. Right? And therefore, when there was a visiting rabbi, the local rabbis would want to kind of somehow figure out what information this rabbi has. Now, sometimes they were embarrassed to ask him to his face, well, what's the rule or what's this? Because they're supposed to be great scholars and they're supposed to know it. So they found various tricks on how to find out this information. What was the tricks? Very often they would just go and look at what this rabbi did, right? They would bait the rabbi into a particular situation, okay? And once they baited the rabbi into a particular situation, they saw what he did, and however he acted, that proves that that was his opinion, right? Because as I mentioned in the past, in the rabbinic world, there's a rule, okay? It's not a new rule, this is an old rule called practice what you preach. If you hold that something is the rule, you must be following that rule, okay? You can't say, oh, I think the rule is A, but I'm doing B. What's wrong with you? You got to follow the Torah, okay? As a matter of fact, I mentioned this story that Aristotle was once seen doing something against his own morals, and his students said, well, how could you do this? Didn't you teach us otherwise? And Aristotle responded by saying, right now, I'm not Aristotle. I took a break. I'm no longer Aristotle. In other words, I can say one thing and I can do something else. But that was with secular thinkers. That's not with the Talmudic sages. The Talmudic sages, they did what they preached what they did what they preached, and that's that. Okay? Now, back to what we're saying. Ula came to visit Pumbedisa. Pumbedisa was a great place with a lot of learned rabbis. Ula was a visiting rabbi, which means perhaps he has information that we don't. And so they went to pick his brain. So what happened is that this rabbi, Rav Yehuda, this great rabbi called Rav Yehuda, he sent his son, called Rabbi Yitzchak, he told him, do me a favor. Take a basket of fruit, go visit Ula. You're just kind of, oh yeah, you're a visiting scholar, here you go. I'm going to, offer you a welcome gift. Here's a basket of fruit. And while you're there, I want you to watch how he makes Havdalah. Right? Why? Why do we want to know how he makes Havdalah? Because perhaps he does it different than us, and I want to learn something out of the fact of how Ula says Havdalah. Havdalah, of course, is the prayer we say as Shabbos ends, the Sabbath ends, and we make a prayer, a ritual to show that to sanctify the Shabbat that just finished. Okay? Now, of course, what does he do? What does Ula do? Sorry, what did Rav Yitzchak do? He did not go himself. He decided that instead of going himself, he was going to send somebody else. He delegated it. And if you remember earlier this week, we had a long, hard discussion, which we're going to repeat for our friend Shaul, who just arrived today, right? Is that if you have a mitzvah, if you have something special and meaningful, important for you to do, don't delegate it. You should love it. You should love it with all your heart, and you should do it right away. Right? You don't give it to somebody else. Right? If you have $1 million, you say, listen, I don't want to deal with this $1 million. Here, give it to somebody else. No, why not? Why wouldn't you do that? If somebody gives you $1 million, listen, I can't handle $1 million. Here, take it. Why don't people do that? Why don't people do that? Sure. Huh? Okay, greedy, trust, but what's the real reason that people don't give away their $1 million? It's theirs, okay. So why would they delegate? What's the difference between why would they delegate? It's theirs. They got a mission. It's their mission. Huh? They value the $1 million. So if you value the $1 million, and that's why you're not going to give it away, if you value a meaningful mission that you were given, you don't give it away to somebody else. What's wrong with you, man? Huh? Incentive is shmentive. If you don't need an incentive for something you value. As a matter of fact, the incentive is giving you something you value for something you don't value, right? You don't value doing work, so therefore somebody has to tell you, because you don't value doing work and you do value money, so therefore I'll give you money so that you should do the work, right? But why are you working for money? Because you value money, right? And why don't you want to work without being paid? Because you don't value working, right? But if you truly value the opportunity to do something awesome, the opportunity to do a mitzvah, if you truly value that, then you should do it. Don't delegate it. Why are you giving it away? Same way you don't give away your $1 million because you value your $1 million, right? You should not give away your opportunity to do something good, right? But Rav Yitzchak, unfortunately, did delegate it. And as you're going to hear at the end of the story, his father tells him off. So he delegates it to Abaye, who as Abaye is our favorite character in the Talmud. If you remember the name Abaye, you're good to go. That's it. All right? Anyways, so here comes Abaye. Abaye says, I'm going to do it. You know why? Because he valued it. He valued this. He's like, wow, a mission to find out, to spy on Ula and find out what his opinion is in a particular matter that us students in Pumbedisa don't yet know. Somebody's like, it's an awesome opportunity. I'm going to go for it. Shalom Aleichem. Why are you sitting there?
Huh?
Because I entered from the back, and I don't want to.
You should sit at the table. Don't sit in the corner over there. All right.
In the middle, I also don't want to disturb.
It's okay.
Okay. All right. If you want, you could sit there, or you could come and sit in the table, please. You don't have to hide in the corner. All right. Shalom Aleichem. Oh, you could also have a seat, please. All right. Let's let's continue. Okay. Weiter. So Abaya goes to the house of Ula, and he, of course, brings his basket of fruit, and he finds out that Ula, when he did the Havdalah ritual, he said something very simple. That's it. He said, Baruch Hamavdil ben Kodesh l'chol. That's it. That's the whole thing. Baruch Hamavdil ben Kodesh l'chol. 5 words.
Yeah.
Right? If you know that our Havdalah prayer is a lot longer, especially if you like the Kalbach one, you know. Hine kel Yeshua sikra. How's it go?
Exactly there.
Anyways, we don't just do 5 words. Ula only did 5 words. Now, what happened is Abaye goes back to Rav Yitzchak and he reports to him what Ula did. Rav Yitzchak goes back to his father and his father says, "What did Ula do?" And what does Yitzchak say? What does Rav Yitzchak say? What does Rav Yitzchak say? He says, "I didn't go, so I can't tell you what he did because I didn't see it." But Abaye went, and this is what he said he did. Now his father, of course, tells him off and says, excuse me. He says the hungriness of Abaye and the laziness of you prevented you from hearing it from the source.
Whoa.
Which means, in other words, he was praising Abaye for being hungry. He was you know what? Oh wow, I'm hungry to learn something new. That's what you need to do over here, right? As a matter of fact, as an educator, one of the most important things for me to try to do is to stir a hunger in the students. Because if you're not hungry for the information, if you're not hungry to serve God, you're not hungry to learn something deeper, you won't do it. But if you are hungry, if I can kind of like whet your appetite and get you starving for information, then you're going to be like Abaye. The second you have opportunity to grab and to digest and to eat and to swallow a piece of information, you're in. That's it. Okay? Anyways.
And the
yes.
Abaye gets to be the source in the Gemara for now
Correct.
seeing what he did.
Correct. Now Abaye became the source, even though Abaye saw it from Ula, but he's the source that Ula did this. Because Ula himself never came out and said that that's his opinion. Right? Again, we're deducing that that's his opinion because that's what he did. But who is the witness? Abaye. And Abaye just became the witness to this instead of Rav Yitzchak. Right? And basically his father was a bit let down that he lost this tremendous opportunity to be the source of information. Right? Anyways, Kenai Nahara. Good. That's the end of that story. Once we finish that story, and that's why it's very important to realize that story is now over. Okay? Over, done. Story's ended. Now the Gemara will begin to analyze this story and try to figure out what could we know from this story, or what perhaps could we challenge from this story. Okay? And that is how the Gemara goes on to the next stage of analysis. Okay? So we're going from this story, we have this information, and that's very important. Lock the information in. Okay, I'm going to say briefly, the information is essentially that Ula said, Hamavdil ben Kodesh l'chol. And that was his entire Havdalah, no more, no less. That's what he said.
Well, it also says, Omar Vesula.
Yeah. The two lo means and no more. The two lo means and no more.
And no more.
And no more. I mean, he didn't say anything else. That's what I said that. Yeah. I said he said that and no more, no less.
But when Yitzchak talking to his father, he doesn't include that part. He just says that he said, Hamavdil ben Kodesh l'chol.
I hear.
He doesn't say nothing else.
Okay, I hear.
I don't know. So that's not
all right. I don't know. It's a good point. First of all, sometimes it could be a bit of a misprint in the Gemara. Sometimes the Gemara might assuming it. No, but I'm saying it's actually a very good observation that you made. That he didn't even repeat it the same way. The truth is, the two law was be Abaye's words and not Ula's words. So maybe he felt he didn't need to repeat Abaye's words. He only needed to say the
one thing.
Yeah, what he actually heard from Ula. Anyways, good. So that's that. So the end of the story. The end of the story, that's what it says. Now we come to Meisvei. Meisvei is one of our favorite keywords. What is Meisvei as a keyword? Reuvein. Huh? Challenge, correct. We are challenging. This Gemara is challenging Ula, or challenging this conclusion that the Gemara seems to be concluding that it would be okay to end Shabbos by just simply saying Hamavdil ben Kodesh l'chol. The Gemara Meisvei says this is a challenge. Kol habrachos kulum pesach bebrachos. He says that all blessings that the Jewish people make has to begin, meaning sometimes we have these long blessings, right? They all have to begin with Baruch Atah Hashem, blessed are you, God, as well as they're supposed to end with blessed are you, God, right? So every bracha has to begin and end with blessed are you, God. Yeah? However, there are a few exceptions. And those exceptions it lists as those exceptions. What are those exceptions? It says, except for the blessings on mitzvahs, the blessings on fruit, which seemingly is the blessing on food, and a blessing that is right after a previous blessing. Yeah? And the last blessing of Shema. Yeah? So 4 exceptions. There's only 4 exceptions of what is in fact considered a blessing. There's only 4 exceptions of blessings that you only have to say, blessed are you God, once. You don't have to say in the beginning and the end. And these are the 4 exceptions. And it says there are no others. And he says, of these, some of them you say it in the beginning, and some of them you say it in the end, whatever it is. Yeah? Yeah. Now, if you remember, Ula is saying Havdalah. Ula is saying Havdalah. He's saying the blessing after Shabbat. And he only says, blessed are you God, once. That seems to be a contradiction to Ula. I'll tell you what, it seems to be a contradiction to all our previous sages, because even the sages that had a longer Havdalah, they all seem to only have one blessing. So the question is this question in the Talmud a question only on Ula? Is it a challenge only on Ula, or is it a challenge on all the previous sages that we mentioned? Huh?
Where's the Yaknaha? Havdalah.
Correct. We had Yaknaha or Yaknahaz. All of them only had one blessing for Havdalah. No, the truth is Yaknaha, we just said which order they should be, and we didn't actually tell you what the blessing of Havdalah would be. Right? Now, I'll be honest with you, it's important to analyze this, and amongst us, it's an idea that just came to my head right now in the middle of the study. You had something you wanted to say?
You're talking about the blessing of Havdalah, right?
Correct.
The last one?
Well, there is only one blessing of Havdalah. Correct.
It starts with Baruch Atah and it
Right.
ends with Baruch Atah.
Oh, very good.
It's actually the opposite.
So it does
of
start.
most of the blessings that I'm saying in the morning, which only start with Baruch Atah Hashem, Makeinu
Correct.
Mechal, Shelo Asani Goy.
Correct.
There's a whole slew of these.
There's a whole slew of blessings
So
that you only say
actually-
one. So you're right. Now that I think about it, you're right. In Havdalah, we do say a blessing in the beginning and the end. So it could be that the other opinions that were in the previous page actually did say a blessing in the beginning and the end, right? So this challenge seems only to be on
what Ula did.
on what Ula
Ula
did.
did what,
Yeah.
what Ula did.
Yeah, and by the way, we analyzed. Okay, so we had a question that Ula seemed to be saying a blessing, and he only said Baruch Atah Hashem once when he really should have been saying it twice. So that's a challenge on Ula, right? And when we resolve this challenge, then we'll learn to figure out what your question was, right? We resolved this challenge by saying as follows: that Havdalah is similar to blessings on mitzvahs, right? Etc. And then it says, well, why? Why is a blessing on mitzvahs an exception to this rule? We said the reason it's an exception to the rule is because it is about hoido'ah, which means it is about acknowledging God's greatness. Now, when it comes to a blessing that's only acknowledging God's greatness and nothing else, we, in fact, only say, blessed are you, God, once. Okay? We don't say it twice. Okay? Because it's almost like it's a simple blessing that's just about praising God for something. And that seems to be also the reason for the morning blessings. Right? If, in fact, as the Rashbam says, if in fact there is a request, sometimes in the blessing we ask for something, right? If there is even a request that God should appreciate us, if there's anything other than praising God or acknowledging God's greatness, then we would have to say a blessing in the beginning and in the end.
Wow.
Yeah.
Even as a request?
Huh?
What did you say the example was again? In this case.
Again, if there's anything separating the acknowledging, if it's a blessing just acknowledging God for something God did, right? You're saying, God, wow, you're awesome, you created the world. God, you're awesome because you opened the eyes of those who were shut. That's one of the blessings in the morning, right? When you're sleeping, your eyes are closed and you open up. So pekech ivrim, it's like you open up the blind people, which means that when you're sleeping, you're kind of blind and then you wake up, right? So you're blessing, I want to say blessing, you're acknowledging God for something he did. If it's only pure acknowledgement and nothing else, then you're good to go. Then you're good to go. You only say one blessing, meaning you only say one time, blessed are you God, and then you acknowledge him for what he's blessed for. However, if there's a form of a request, right, or anything else that is talking about something other than God's acknowledgement, then you have to say a blessing at the beginning and the end. Yeah.
And mitzvot.
Huh?
And also mitzvot.
Well, that is the reason for the mitzvot. Again, the blessings on mitzvot, we're acknowledging God for giving us a commandment. Now you're going to ask me, why would we acknowledge God for giving us a commandment? We should be like, what, you want us to do things and we're supposed to thank you for it? The answer is yes. As I said earlier, that if you value something, if you truly value God, and you realize that whatever he's asking you to do is in your personal benefit, right? You should be happy that he asks you to do something. Because if he asks you to do something, it's in your personal benefit. Otherwise, he wouldn't ask you to do it. Right? And by the way, even if it's not your personal benefit, but even if it benefits God, if you value God, you should be happy, right? If you love your parent, and you see your parent wants something, you give it to them. The very fact that your parent got what they want gives you what? Wow, I helped somebody I love. I appreciate them, and therefore I help them. Right? And therefore, when we do something that God asks us to do, we're happy that he asks us to do it. We acknowledge him, we thank him. That's like actually the blessing we do on every mitzvah. If you look at it, we're actually thanking God for giving us the mitzvah. Right? I want you to remember that next time you say a blessing on a mitzvah, whatever mitzvah you're making. You should realize you're actually saying you thank God for doing a mitzvah. You're like, okay, am I done yet? No, well, make up your mind. Oh, what's that?
Depends on the mitzvah.
Depends on the mitzvah. But that's why we say the blessing of the mitzvah, because the blessing is meant to remind you that we should, and we're meant to be super excited about doing every single mitzvah. Yeah, and that's why we thank God for giving us the mitzvah. Right? We wrap tefillin, we say, Baruch atah Hashem, blessed are you God, Elokeinu melech haolam, the Lord of the entire universe, that has commanded us, Asher Kiddushanim v'mitzvot, that has made us holy with his mitzvahs. V'tzivanu has commanded us to place tefillin. And then we wrap the tefillin. Thank God for asking us to wrap tefillin. Thank God for asking us to do Shabbat. We don't actually do a mitzvah blessing on Shabbat, but we do Kiddush on Shabbat, thanking God for giving us the Sabbath. Right? Same thing for every mitzvah. What are the other mitzvahs that we do blessings on? We don't do blessings on all mitzvahs, but a lot of mitzvahs we do blessings. We're really meant to do a blessing on every mitzvah that we do. However, there are some reasons why certain mitzvahs we don't. For example, right, when we give tzedakah, right, there was actually a discussion. Well, maybe we should make a maybe. Right? Why don't we make a blessing to give charity? You know what the rabbi said? Huh?
It is a mitzvah.
It's a mitzvah. So why don't we say a blessing on giving charity? Why not? Let's see if you can guess.
You don't want people to think that you're worshiping somebody.
No, that's not the reason. Huh? What's the reason that we?
You don't want to embarrass the guy?
What, you're giving the guy tzedakah anyway, so what?
He's not trying to do it for reward. You're supposed to do
Yeah, but you still, either or, you're acknowledging God for giving you the mitzvah, just like we do by every mitzvah. Every mitzvah we say.
I know why.
Yeah, why?
Because it's not a commandment that was a tzivui. It wasn't a tzivui.
It is. It's a commandment in the Torah to give charity to somebody that's poor, that needs, 100%. It's a mitzvah. It's a commandment to help the poor. So why don't we say a blessing thanking God for giving us the mitzvah? Reuven. You want to hear an interesting answer? You're going to like this answer. It says that if the rabbi, first of all, the blessing on the mitzvah is a rabbinical thing. It doesn't tell you in the Torah to thank God every time you got a mitzvah. It doesn't say that. The rabbis established it in order to ensure that you appreciate the mitzvahs, that you should realize that you're thanking God, that you should do it. So it was a rabbinical establishment. Now, within rabbinical establishments, they very often had to consider the consequences of their action. And they figured, what happens if there's a guy starving, right? The guy's starving, he needs a bowl of soup, right? And he comes to your house to get a bowl of soup, and you're like, hold on a second, I can't give you the bowl of soup yet. Baruch atah Hashem, Elokeinu melech haolam. The guy's like, I'm starving, give me the bowl. No, hold on, I can't give it to you until I say the mitzvah. If I say the blessing in the mitzvah, then I can give you the bowl, right? And so the rabbis were not embarrassing, because the guy wants food now. He doesn't want. Well, you're gonna make him wait 10 minutes? What happened? The guy just came out of the bathroom. Now he has to start washing his hands, and he has to, in order to do the mitzvah, in order to do the blessing. So therefore, the rabbi said, you know what? Better don't just give the guy the thing. Whatever he needs, give him right away.
It's because you're obligated if you ask someone to give him.
Correct. No, you could, but you could, again, with other things that you're obligated, we say a blessing. For example, on Pesach, you're obligated to eat matzah the second it becomes dark. But we still say a blessing on eating the matzah. We bless a special blessing. Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvos v'tzivonu al achilas matzah. We actually bless God for giving us the biblical obligation to eat matzah on Passover. Right? The unleavened bread. We have to do it. Yeah? And therefore, but we still say a mitzvah. So it doesn't make, if you're obligated, you can still say you're obligated to do it, but you're going to say a blessing. The problem is with a poor person, it could be, again, it's not, today's starvation in the modern world is almost nil. I mean, and anybody that starves is probably more because of a mental illness. There's places that will give you free food. There's places that you could walk today. If you go into Israel, you walk into every synagogue, there's some cookies, some milk, I don't really see how a person could starve to death today and blame it on anybody other than themselves. And by the way, it could be that they're mentally ill, right? It could be they have a mental illness. But factually, it's very difficult. But in the olden days, it was practical. There was people that were poor, and they didn't eat. And what's going to happen is, if you have to realize, if the rabbis establish that you have to say a blessing, then everybody has to say a blessing, including that person who has food to feed a guy that's starving to death. Right? Now, what happens if the guy went to the bathroom? So the rule is you can't say the blessing after you went to the bathroom until you wash your hands. Okay, so I went to the bathroom and washed my hands. Who knows what else he has to do, right? Maybe he's dirty. If a person's dirty, they're smelly. What happens if the guy's smelly? You don't know. He can't say Hashem's name. What happens if he just stepped in, he was walking down the street, he stepped in some dog dung and it splashed all over him, and now he's all smelly. He's not, correct, he can't say a blessing. He's not allowed to do it. He can't say the blessing. And so he has to go wash himself up. Before you know it, the guy could die. As a matter of fact, in the Talmud, there's a story. There's a story in the Talmud. I forget who it was. But there was a story in the Talmud that one of the great sages met a poor person, and the poor person said, he's starving, can he get some food? And I think the sage says, wait till I finish davening Shacharis. And by the time he finished praying Shacharis, the guy was dead. And he fasted, and so he stopped eating. He fasted tremendous. I forget exactly what it was, but he was fasting because he wanted to get forgiveness for the horrible sin he did. He should have given the food right away. Yeah. As a matter of fact, one of the Chabad rabbis, the Chabad Rabbim, I forget who it was, maybe the Tzemach Tzedek, he was once walking to Shacharis, and he met a person that said, I need some money it's market day today, I need some money to make an investment so I can try to sell something in the marketplace, right? And so he told him, come to me after Shacharis, I'll give you whatever you ask. And then he continued walking, And he thought to himself, hold on a second, it's market day today. Maybe he needs to buy some investment early enough that he could still sell it today. And if he doesn't sell it today, then he's not going to have money. He says, that's it. He actually looked for the guy. He looked for the guy, even though he didn't daven chakras. He looked for the guy, found the guy, and said, you know what? Here's the money that you need, right? Because when it comes to charity, you don't know when the guy needs it. You don't know how much he needs it. You don't know, the guy could be dying. Now, as I said, today it's unlikely, but in the olden days it was likely. And by the way, even today, if it's not just because it's unlikely doesn't mean it's not possible. You could have somebody that with mental illness that for some reason he'll accept food from you and won't accept food from somebody else. It happens, right? A lot of people, unfortunately, that die from starvation today, they do it. It happens today. Very often they're mentally ill and they think that everybody's out to get them, and sometimes they happen to trust one person or two people. And if those one or two people don't give them food, they'll die. Because they're so scared of getting killed that they'll die in order to prevent themselves from getting killed. Right? No, I'm serious. The people, they have problems. It happens. So that's why even today it is applicable that you have to see that not always, perhaps in some cases, you could say a blessing over tzedakah. But you cannot do it in every case. And that's why the rabbis didn't want to establish, because if they established it, you'll have one faknukt. You know what a faknukt is? You never met those guys? Faknukt. Yeah? You never met them? They're like every detail they have to do exactly, they buy a $3,000 esrog, they buy the citron that we have to have on Sukkot, $3,000 because it has to be perfect and shiny and whatever it is, right? So if the rabbis establish the blessing, then even if they say, okay, we'll establish the blessing, but you don't always have to do it if you're in an emergency situation. But again, who's to judge if it's an emergency situation? Maybe you think it's an emergency situation. Maybe you don't think it's an emergency situation, but it really is. And the lesson is that you should give tzedakah right away when you have an opportunity, and not delay, to pray or to whatever it is. Right? Anyone else? Good. So that is a whole nother aspect of this week's Talmudic lesson. Okay? So as I said, we're going through a brief synopsis of the entire Talmudic lesson that we learned throughout the week. So the first part was the story about Ula and not procrastinating and not delegating something. If you were given a mission, don't delegate it. We had that whole thing. Now, based on that story, we had a challenge because he seemed to only say Baruch Atah Hashem once, and therefore we came into a whole new discussion of when you say blessed are you God once, and when do you have to say it twice, right? And that's how we got into the whole conversation here with the blessings of mitzvahs, etc., all that stuff. Okay, good. Weiter gegangen. Let's continue. Birchas ha-mitzvahs. All right. Now we're going to prove why the blessing. How do we know that the blessings of mitzvahs? How do we know that the blessings of mitzvahs are? It's exempt from saying "Blessed are you, God" twice. You only say it once. How do we know this? How do we know that? We need to bring a source. So now the Gemara is going to a next step where it's bringing a source, and in order to bring the source of this conclusion, a proof to this conclusion, we then go on a bit of a tangent and we tell you the story of Rav Chanina bar Shelemya. Okay, Rav Chanina bar Shelemya, together with Talmidei Harav, they were sitting in a meal, and there was their butler, their servant over there, was called Rav Havnuna Saba, the grandfather of Havnuna, who, by the way, was also a great Talmudic scholar. They were all great Talmudic scholars, all of them, right? Amrulei, he said to them, Zil Chazi imikadish yoima. They told their butler, their servant, who was also a great Talmudic scholar, go see if the day went down yet. Go see if it is dark. Why would they want to know if it's dark on Friday afternoon? Because once it's dark, it turns to Shabbos. The Sabbath starts as soon as it gets dark, right, on Friday. Right? So you want to know if it's dark so that they can make Kiddush. What does he answer them? He answers them that you don't need you don't need it for it to be dark in order to establish Shabbos. Shabbos establishes itself. Now, how is this relevant to the previous conversation? Yeah.
Saying a blessing to establish the.
So you're saying a blessing not in order to establish Shabbos, but in order to praise God for having established Shabbos. Yeah. Yeah. Now, we said, well, if Shabbos establishes itself, then must be that it also its end also establishes its end. Which means once it goes sundown on Saturday afternoon, then Shabbos ends automatically too. And the Havdalah is only there to praise God for what has already been done. Right? Good. And we even brought a further proof. Oh, no, so we thought that Havdalah, that Shabbos is automatically ends, just like Shabbos automatically starts, Shabbos automatically ends. But it says no. He says Shabbos automatically starts. Why? Because Shabbos is a holy thing. Sabbath is something holy. God comes and says, now it's a holy day. Zeh, it's Shabbat. However, the other way around, God doesn't say Shabbat is over. Until you decide Shabbat is over, it's not over. As a matter of fact, you are allowed to take Shabbat early before Shabbat starts, and you can end Shabbat after it. There's no time. However, you can take Shabbat early, but you cannot take Shabbat late. You can't start Shabbos after the time. No, one Shabbat is Shabbat is Shabbat. So Shabbat is established by God. There's a certain time where God says, now is Shabbat, meaning to start. However, there's no time where God says Shabbat ends.
So because
You are the ones that are establishing it.
Because I established the end, and it's not a bracha of praise, I have to give the bracha twice.
Seemingly, yes. It's seemingly, although it's trying to bring us as proof otherwise.
You can't keep Shabbos for more than
Huh?
like, you can't keep it for 2 days. Hashem establishes
Right.
so
First of all, it says you can push Havdalah all the way off to Tuesday, and if you do, and you have in mind to keep Shabbat, I guess you could. Why not? Maybe you could see, maybe you could keep Shabbat till Tuesday. Why not? I don't know. Huh? It's been known to happen? You've done till Shabbat till Tuesday?
No, but I have taken it out late.
Ah.
And I have forgotten to do Havdalah and
Yeah.
do it on Tuesday.
Oh, you've done Havdalah on Tuesday?
Yeah, because I forgot what you're going to do. You gotta get
Yeah, we got to do Havdalah. We do on Tuesday. Yeah. How do you forget it all the way to Tuesday? Then,
just saying.
okay, I can get it for Sunday. You forget Sunday. Tuesday. Wow. Anyways, can I know that? Now the question is, how exactly is this a proof to what's going on? It's a good question in itself. We have to. For some reason, I didn't analyze it well enough. I don't know. I have to look at it more deeper. Yeah. Good. And then we went into whether you're allowed to eat. It says once Shabbat is over, even though you didn't make Havdalah, and even though Shabbat is still continuing, are you allowed to eat? And the answer is, everybody agrees you're not allowed to eat. There's only an argument whether you can drink water. Whether you can drink water or not, then there's an argument. But definitely you're not allowed to drink, you're not even allowed to drink something with taste, like fruity juice or anything with like substance, you cannot. Only water you can drink. There's some people say you could, some people say you can't. Is there a time that you cannot say that Shabbat ends? That's what Oleg asks. And I think we just mentioned is really Shabbat cannot end past Tuesday. And the only question is by you accepting that Shabbat it goes till Tuesday, is that actually valid or not? I cannot tell you 100%. I don't know. I'm sorry. I don't know. Oh, so he's asking, what if I decide that Shabbat ends a minute after it starts? Now that's a problem, because as I said, Shabbat, God establishes when Shabbat starts and when Shabbat is. He doesn't establish when Shabbat isn't. Right? So you cannot end Shabbat before Shabbat ends because God establishes the day of Shabbat and he says this is Shabbat. From this time to this time is Shabbat. He establishes when Shabbat is, but he does not establish when Shabbat isn't. You are the one that establishes when Shabbat isn't. Okay? He brings in Shabbat, and his Shabbat begins from dark on Friday till dark on Saturday is Shabbat. Right? And that you don't have a choice. However, if you want to extend it, you could extend it. And by the way, both ways you could extend it. I think that halachically you're not supposed to extend it prior to Plag HaMincha, which is a few hours before sundown on Friday. And at the end, I'm not sure if there's any official limit. We can look it up. I don't claim to know everything that's out there. There's plenty of books on Judaism that I don't know. I'm sorry to break the heart of so many people. They think that I know every single book that was written in Judaism. I don't know if it's physically possible, but there's hundreds of thousands of books. I always say that Judaism is by far the most recorded religion in the world, by far. Right? There's so much literature on it that whatever. Anyways, so with that, I think we've kind of summarized the Gemara. For all of you in the class, hold on a second, where are you running? For all of you in the class, I want you to restudy it, and tomorrow we're going to go through the Gemara, word for word, and make sure that you understand it in the words of the Talmud itself. For those of you who are online, could we share them? We actually made a WhatsApp group.
Yeah, no, I need to
We got to get the link. We're going to get the link to the WhatsApp group. If you want it, you could actually send me a message or put in the regular comments, not in the comments over here, but in the regular comments after the video goes on like a regular video. You put on a comment, and I will get it to keep in touch when and how this class is online. And let me know. We should put it in as well. He says, Oleg says there's too many books on Judaism. No, there's not too many books.
Not enough.
And there's going to be more. There'll be a lot more books on Judaism. Toiras Mashiach. Okay, good. See you later. If you haven't yet subscribed, do it now before you forget. And we'll see you next time.